everyone, GM, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Starknet Espresso, the podcast spotlighting builders behind the future of Starknet and decentralized infrastructure. I'm your host, Uche. Today's guest is Matteo, CEO of Pragma, a next-gen Oracle protocol live on Starknet. Pragma is rethinking how oracles work, favoring credibility, transparency, and composability in an open, on-chain economy. Let's feast.
Thank you so much, Matthew, for joining us today. It's such a pleasure to have you with us.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me.
Oh, yeah. So just to start things off, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience and give us a little bit about background on how you got into blockchain oracles?
Sure. So I'm Matteo. I'm the CEO of Pragma. My story is pretty short, actually. I'm an engineer. So I did the engineering school in France in computer science and embedded systems. And I worked a while in embedded systems first. And then my co-founder, Matthias, who was with me at the engineering school, introduced me to crypto. So in 2019 or something like this. So we started to build stuff in crypto. He was at MakerDAO at the beginning. Essentially working on DAI. He ended up working on bridging DAI to Starknet. If you guys were early to Starknet, you remember we had a native version of DAI at the very beginning. Like beginning of 2023. He was working on that, and so we ended up working on Starknet, and we realized while he was at Maker that there was that we could bridge a gap in the Oracle infrastructure, especially given the fact that oracles today are monolithic and they're not very modular. You can't do a lot of stuff with them, and one big thing that's missing about Oracle is the ability to program the oracles. And so today, if you want to price assets in DeFi, you're mostly forced to use VWAPs. And so it fits well to short-tail assets, but whenever you want to price all the kind of assets, it's really hard. And so that was the initial thesis and why we started, because we saw that we could bring programmability to the pricing of assets. And so Starknet could enable us to do that. So that's basically the story here. And so we started to work on this in the middle of 2023. We ended up continuing to work on this. That's a little bit of the story here.
It's so fascinating because in such a short time, just 2023, Pragma is the leading oracle on Starknet currently. I had Vesu co-founder here, and he talked so good about utilizing Pragma oracles on VC2. I guess the question would be, I know you've talked about a little bit on why Starknet, why you chose Starknet, but for me, I look at Starknet is new. The programming language is new. The Cairo programming language is a new tech when it comes to ZK rollup. It must have been difficult getting into, getting Pragma up on Starknet. What were those hurdles and how did you, navigate those challenges?
Yeah, so actually, we started on Starknet very early on. I think we were among the first teams to build on Starknet. And so it was essentially because of the people that were working on Starknet. So we talked a lot with Louis Guzman at the beginning. So he's one of the main reasons many of a lot of different French people started to work on Starknet. And so it's really like this connection. And I think the initial vision back then was really promising. And so essentially the idea to do a lot of computation off chain and then prove it with Stark proofs, and it's just where the industry is going today. And so they had this bold vision back then, and turns out they were kind of right because people are doing more and more stuff with ZK and just proving stuff because it just improves bandwidth. So I think the initial vision was really appealing to us, and so that's why we started. And so back then it was Cairo 0, which was quite a horrible version of Cairo.
Yeah.
Definitely. But yeah, I'm an engineer, but I stopped coding, so I didn't have any pain with Cairo Zero. But I know that a bunch of people that are still in the team were struggling with this. And it took time to go from like this initial version to Cairo 1. So, like we call it Cairo now, but this version of Cairo today that is more REST-like. And I think, yeah, today it's like from what I understand, it's like a very, very good programming language for smart contracts. And I hope that we will see more Cairo outside of the blockchain and to use it to prove stuff. So there's like Giza that's doing this, Herodotus as well, that is using Cairo outside of Starknet just to prove computation. But yeah, like generally, like it's pretty easy to get onboarded now. There's lots of resources, and I'm sure there's gonna be more and more people like coming to Cairo. We can already see that on like the different developer reports. So yeah.
Great, great. I mean, just to point to what you said about Cairo Zero being very difficult, I've had a couple of people come on the show, and Cairo Zero was very, very difficult. And I'm imagining, like you already pointed to it, I'm imagining how difficult it would have been for you guys to, go around it then. But things are easier now. So, and one other thing I was going to ask is oftentimes Pragma is regarded like an oracle for an open economy. What does that line, open economy, mean? What does it mean?
That's a good question. So essentially, that's like we think, and I guess that a lot of people in crypto think this too. But we think that crypto is going to be like the race for the global economy, and we're starting to see this playing with more and more stuff being tokenized. And I think it's just like a general tendency that will continue. And so, with all the assets that are going to be bridged into crypto, we need a way to price all those assets. And so, as I told you before, it's pretty hard today to price assets other than like the short tail ones like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Whenever you go to like longer tail assets or you start to play with derivatives, it's harder to price those things. And so we think that Pragma is in a unique position to price all the assets that are going to be onboarded in crypto, and there's going to be many of them. And so, yeah, that's essentially why, like, our main tagline is the oracle for the open economy, because we think that crypto is going to be the race for the global economy because it's more efficient. There's no opening and closing times. It's like 24/7. It's just like a superior way to move capital. And so we
Yeah.
want to be at the center of this global economy by providing the tools and infrastructure for anyone to price the assets and start to use it as collateral, such as on protocols like Vesu, or use it as collateral on Perpetual or any kind of DeFi protocols. So yeah, that's really the vision here.
I mean, great, great. Because one of the things I noticed recently was I'm not sure if I get the pronunciation correctly, but Pico, SPIKO, is one of the DeFi platforms on Starknet now. And what they are doing is they're bringing real world assets to the blockchain. I think one of the things that they've done is treasury bills. They're bringing treasury bills to their platform too. And it's so important that you have, Pragma oracles like this that are able to do real-time pricing on those assets. And I think it positions you Pragma for for things like this to come. What do you think about that?
Yeah, exactly. So I think you're talking about Spyco, right?
Yeah, exactly, Spike. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, exactly. They're French people, so that's why I know a little bit
Okay, yeah.
of the name and so on. But yeah, so they're tokenizing T-bills. So it's like an SPV, which is like a legal structure. You can think of it as like a fund that holds T-bills. So like T-bills are just like the safest form of short-term money. And so essentially they're able to provide you with the American risk-free rate. And they tokenize this. So they have like a legal entity that holds all those T-bills. and they tokenize this on Starknet, on Ethereum, and on different blockchains. And so, as the owner of those tokens on the blockchain, you're entitled to a part of like all the yield and all the assets that are in this SPV. And so, a question for this kind of very simple derivative, right? It's very simple. Like the structure is very simple. They only have T-bills in a fund. And so, how do you price this kind of assets? You can do it through market rate. And so, you just essentially look at Ekubo and like what's the price on Ekubo of this kind of assets. But it may not be like the best way to do this because it's like a derivative, right? It represents something that is in a fund. And so like the best way to price this kind of thing is just to look at the assets in the fund and not really like the market rate, because the market rate is pretty easily manipulable. And you could see like a depeg from the real value because there's not much liquidity. And so that's like the kind of things that we enable. Just pick like the pricing mechanism, look at the assets in the fund, and so you directly can price each token based on like the value of the assets in the fund. And so that's like all the flexibility that we bring to the table. And I think that's very powerful for more complex derivatives. But like Spyco is already something that is pretty hard to price on chain. Yeah, I think that's like the kind of assets that we're going to see more and more being tokenized and being used on Starknet. Yeah.
Great, great. Talking about accuracy of price feeds now, I understand Pragma uses multiple data providers. How do you ensure the accuracy of this, data being provided for Starknet smart contracts?
Yeah, so there's two sides of this. I think the first one is on the data itself, and so who are the data providers? And so we're using only like first-party data providers, big companies that are in the data business. So you can think about like market makers, solvers, and any kind of data companies such as like Kaiko, Ember Data, these kind of companies that already like their business is to provide data, and so we're using them as like the input of our price feeds. And it's really important to have high quality data at the beginning and to just have trusted partners here that have like the most accurate data in the industry. So that's the first part. And then on the second part, there's all the data processing part because you can't really trust anyone. You're on a blockchain, and so maybe like a data provider has an interest in the price going up or the price going down because they have a position on Vesu and so on. And so you have to make sure that you have lots of different data providers so that they don't have all the same interest, all the same shared interest to manipulate the price. That's one thing. And then you add on the Oracle layer, data cleaning and this kind of stuff to make sure that even if a few people are trying to manipulate the price, it won't end up in a bad price on chain. And so like on Pragma, we're using mostly median prices. And so we would need more than half of our data providers to publish wrong prices in order to have like a wrong price at the end. So yeah, like residency comes from like the number of data providers and like these data filtering parameter as well.
Oh, great. So I think maybe this is where the confusion is for me, because I was under the impression that Pragma uses institutional data providers. Is this, where does data come from as far as Pragma is concerned?
So it comes from like the most liquid markets. And so we have lots of data providers that are taking data from centralized exchanges because that's where price discovery happens. So everything like from Binance, Coinbase, Bybit, all these kind of big centralized exchanges where like people are trading. That's like I would say 80% of where the price comes from, because that's where price discovery happens. And so we have like all this data, and then we have I would say like 20% coming from on-chain sources. So like Ekubo, we have Avenue as a data provider as well. And so that's for all the longer tail assets. So if you think about S Stark or X Stark, like the liquid staking token from Endure. So we have like a mix of those venues, and that's what constitutes a good price, right? You have like mixed data sources, and that's how we do it.
Yeah, great. So that leads me to the next question because, like, I know for Chainlink, oracles like Chainlink, there's something about slashing, like for bad players in the system, and incentivizing good players with a token method of incentivizing people. Is there something like that for Pragma when it comes to incentivization for good players?
So it's a really complex question, I would say, because there's a difference between oracles and blockchains. And so if you think about slashing on blockchains, it's very simple because it's deterministic data. Essentially, you have an input and you have an algorithm and you can verify the output. Like you can verify if someone cheats. For instance, I can verify that you didn't sign something. Like it's deterministic data, and so it's easy for light nodes and everyone in the ecosystem to verify that transactions are correct because it uses deterministic data. For oracles, we're using non-deterministic data, and so you can't verify the price of Bitcoin, right? There's different prices on different exchanges. You may have like 90K on Ekubo and 90K and $3 on Coinbase. And it doesn't mean that one is more correct than the other. It's just that there's some arbitrage going on and stuff and so on. And so you can't verify really what's the price of Bitcoin. You can only statistically estimate the price. And so it's why it's harder in oracles to slash people based on bad behavior because we have to define what bad behavior is. And so that's like a complex question here. We don't have such mechanism in place today, but Chainlink only has like a white paper. Nothing is implemented today in production. And so their solution to this is essentially saying they have like their oracle, and so they report prices. And then there's a second committee of trusted people that say this is a bad price. And so you're still trusting someone at the end. So yeah, like there's no perfect mechanism here. But I think one good way to do this is to use restaking. And so we're working a lot with Symbiotic, which is like a restaking protocol on Ethereum that will enable us to implement this logic. But it's still like being worked on today.
Great, fantastic. So that leads me to the next question. What would you say is the major difference between Pragma and legacy oracles like Chainlink?
I think like the main difference is in programmability. So of course there's like lots of them, lots of differences, but the main one is on like the flexibility and the programmability. That's what I told you we want to position, and so we enable people to come on the Oracle, deploy smart contracts, and tweak the logic. And so you can essentially, like program your own type of pricing. For instance, if you use a derivative, you can like change the pricing and use market rates. That's what Vesu is doing for Xstark. They are using the redemption rates on like Endo's smart contracts. And so that's like you will have all the flavors because you can just develop your own pricing. So that's like the main difference here. It's like obviously there's other difference, but I would say in terms of like ideology, that's like how we differentiate.
Yeah, just to go back a little bit on data providers, I'm thinking about it, and someone from our side will say on that, well, especially when we are looking at in terms of decentralization, one would look at data providers and say we are depending on centralized exchanges. Doesn't that contradict the idea of decentralization?
So it's not really the case because like the price of an asset is determined on the most liquid venue, and so like as an oracle, we need to report the correct price of an asset. And so it doesn't matter where the data comes from. What we need to do is find the most liquid venues and get those prices from here, because that's where the price discovery happens. And so if an asset is being traded more on centralized exchanges than on decentralized exchanges, we're kind of forced to do this, because otherwise we are failing our mission to price the assets. But what we can do is use many different reporters and have different entities look at the price on decentralized exchange, so that we still have decentralization here. Like for instance, for BTC, we have around 13 different data providers for this asset. And so it means that even if we have some data providers that are down or misreporting prices, we still have this decentralization and we still make sure that the price is correct. But I would say that like the main problem is crypto in general. People prefer to trade assets on centralized exchanges because it's more convenient. But I think like Starknet has a good shot at changing this with account abstraction, and Argent and Bravo doing a great job at onboarding people very easily. And so that's like a way we could have more trading happening on chain and finally have price discovery on chain. But like for us as a reporting system, like we don't really care where it happens. We just need to pull the data where the liquidity is. That's it.
Great, great. Are there any plans to, bring in smaller independent providers in the future?
That's a complex one because it's not like running a light node for a blockchain. As I told you, it's like non-deterministic data, so there's a lot more maintenance to do if you want to run such data providers. You need to pull data from different places, like centralized exchanges. And then you need to make sure that the data is correct and this kind of stuff. So it's higher maintenance than running like a light node or a full node on the blockchain. And also for us, it's a higher cost to verify the data. Right now, we have contracts with different data providers, so we're sure that they won't cheat. But if we start to accept more people that we don't really know, we need to have like the right incentives in place. And we don't have it yet, as I told you, like on a previous question. So it's a complex problem, but for now, there's no real plan to do this right now, but maybe later. But it's really high maintenance to do this.
Fair enough, fair enough. We've talked about verification and verification of data, and I understand Pragma uses cryptographic verifiers. Can you walk us through that process?
Sure. So essentially, we're using Cairo, and so Starknet as a whole to verify the computation that happens on the Oracle. And so essentially, the architecture is very simple. We have data providers that are pushing data to Starknet. And then on Starknet, we have smart contracts that perform the computation. One of the most common ways to do this is compute a median price, and that's what most of like our customers use, median prices. And so all the computation is happening in Cairo, and so is cryptographically verifiable. So you can just verify the proof of the computation, and so that's how we secure all the computation happening on the Oracle. And as I told you, we have like the programmability part, so that you can change the way you want to price the asset, so you're not forced to use a median price. So you can also deploy your own smart contracts and aggregate the data differently than what we do, but still have like this proofs at the end that the computation happened correctly.
I think that's one of the most, what would you say, remarkable aspect of Starknet, that idea of being able to put computations and being able to verify them. So I think that's one of the things that you guys have tapped into in building Pragma.
For sure. And I think that we're going to see more use cases of computation happening off-chain with Cairo and just verifying the proof on Starknet, for instance. So L3s, layer 3s are kind of this idea, but you still have a blockchain, but you can just like compute stuff, generate a proof, and verify it on chain for games. And I know that Vesu is doing this kind of stuff a lot. But I'm sure there's like tons of applications in DeFi and also in gaming for this.
Yeah, talking about the applications, what are some of the exciting use cases for Pragma that you see in the future?
For today, I think the bigger ones are lending and also perpetuals. So I think that's like the two biggest thing in crypto and especially in DeFi. So we have good stuff happening on that end on Starknet with Vesu, VKLN, Nostra. But I think especially Vesu is doing a great job at opening this market. And so we have like kind of a shared vision on this kind of stuff where people can just come open new markets and they can directly use Pragma to price the assets that they want to list. And so I think there's like a good collaboration here. And I hope we're going to see more markets being opened on Starknet and more liquidity being attracted. The exciting stuff, I think, is also coming from the Bitcoin part and Starknet settling on Bitcoin hopefully pretty soon. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, I think it can be like a good catalyst for DeFi. So there's already incentives on WBTC today. But yeah, I'm sure we'll see many more flavors of Bitcoin with Lombard or the wrapped versions, but also hopefully native versions pretty soon. So yeah, that's kind of like the main application. Then in perpetuals, we have Paradex, which is like a great protocol. They're doing a great job at perpetuals first, but now they open like the perpetual options, which is like a brand new product that only them are working on. I don't know if you had time to test it, but it's pretty amazing. Like there's a lot of volatility, and so even if you're trading on a Bitcoin, you will get like crazy PNLs and crazy volatility on those kind of instruments, especially given the fact that volatility is really high today. And Bitcoin is going up, so everything is going great. So yeah, that's like the main ones I would say. Hopefully we'll have deeper integrations with Bitcoin and more liquidity coming from the Bitcoin side. So that's what really exciting from our point of view today.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that I just took away from what you explained now, because Niels was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about giving what would you say, people the option of choosing between the oracle that they want to use, and I think you pointed to it now. So, I mean, initially I didn't get it fully, but now that you talked about it, I think I get a clearer picture of what it means by being able to select which oracle you want to work with. And I think that's also something I find fascinating about what they call Vesu, because they've chosen their approach towards everything is for me is very impressive. That idea of isolation, people being able to isolate risk and choose what they want, it makes it unique. And I see the same application in oracles, yeah.
Definitely, and I think this is a great example here because you can isolate markets, but you can also share different pools. Basically, it's very flexible, I think it's just like what DeFi was intended to be, like something very flexible and permissionless innovation on top of those very simple primitives. And so I think we'll see much more innovation coming from this kind of designs where everything is really open. You can share risks, you can isolate risks, and you can just build products that will fit everyone's investor profile. So that's like really powerful mechanisms. Definitely good stuff here.
Yeah, so I'm playing with ideas and I'm thinking, is there going to be a situation where we'll have IoT sensors being deployed as data providers on Pragma? I'm talking about like thermometers, for example, or GPS systems providing real-time data to Pragma. I'm just playing around these ideas.
That's a good one. Maybe I don't know. So For today, we're really focused in DeFi because that's
So we were at the part where we were talking about, you were emphasizing you're concentrated on DeFi's now.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I don't know where it cuts, but essentially, yeah, we're very focused on DeFi because that's where most of the use cases are. And yeah, we have a bunch of companies working with us that work on like sports betting. So we are thinking about ways to bring sports data on chain. But yeah, nothing really crazy for now. So we'll see if you have any DApp ID or stuff like this. We can definitely talk about it.
Oh, great. Nice, nice. One more thing I was going to ask was in terms of security and auditing the Pragma code base itself. I understand Netamind was part of it, right?
Yeah, so we did mainly two audits, one with Nethermind and one with Zelic.
How was it? How was the process?
So, yeah, very professional for the both of them. I think Nethermind has a really good position in Cairo, being one of the first yeah, mover on the tech on Cairo. And obviously the leak is petition, the overall great process. And I think we also have like a bug bounty program on Immunify. But yeah, no real problems from now on. So I guess they did a pretty good job, and our engineers too. So that's good for now.
Yeah, great, great. I'd like to emphasize again, thank you so much for, agreeing to come on the show. But just before we round things up, what is next for Pragma? What after? I know you mentioned on Twitter that you guys are in Marrakesh and you're cooking up some stuff. Maybe you tell us some of the things in the pipeline for Pragma.
So what's next for Pragma? We're working on lots of different things right now. So I think, yeah, like one of the main struggle we have right now is to deploy more markets and being able to do it in a scalable way. So if you think about like the pipeline of like how do we integrate new markets, as I told you, we have like data providers publishing data on Starknet, and then all the aggregation happens there. But if we want to introduce new type of assets or these kind of things, we need to be able to have data providers that are ready to push those assets and have all the data that we need in order to have those new assets. And so we're working on a solution to permissionlessly list new assets. And so that's also something that I think would be really interesting with Vesu and with Paradex, for instance, being able to launch new markets very easily and have directly like the price feed that goes with the asset that you want to use as collateral and use as asset in the protocol. So it's not like a really straightforward thing to do, but we have a solution coming out in the next few weeks. And so essentially we'll be able to, in a few clicks, just have the data for any assets in crypto. We'll be covering, yeah, like pretty much every centralized exchange and every major blockchain. So if the asset is living on one of those platforms, you will be able to price this asset and directly use it as collateral in the different protocols. So I think that's like something that is going to bring a lot of innovation in DeFi. As I said, it's like one of the main advantages of DeFi is like the permissionless innovation. And so that's what like that's the direction where we want to go in. And yeah, just enable like the creativity and enable every new market to form on chain. So yeah, that's generally where our heads are at right now. And we're also working on V2 of the protocol, much more scalable. And we want to be able to also provide data on different chains. So like on the whole like, Ethereum ecosystem, but also on all like the Starknet chains that are going to do. But yeah, it's still early on for this.
Yeah, great, great. One more last question. What's your advice for developers that are trying to build using Pragma? What would be your advice to them?
Um, Good question. I think like be creative. Like don't limit yourself to stuff that already exists on the EVM. There's so many protocols that are not efficient on the EVM and that you can improve, and so many primitives that you can just build better in Cairo. So yeah, just be creative and don't put barriers and yeah, just like build like the most interesting stuff that you can. I think Pragma is really modular and programmable, so that you can yeah, cover thousands of use cases. So really be creative is like the biggest advice here.
Well, thank you so much, Matteo, for joining us today. It was such an insightful session, one lively one at that too. So I'm really, really happy that you made our time to join us today. Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. It was a pleasure, and I hope that we can have another one later this year.
Yeah, hopefully, I'm always open to having conversations in Starknet ecosystem.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Matteo. This has been super insightful, walking us through how Pragma is rethinking the Oracle stack for the open economy. To everyone tuned in, don't forget to subscribe, share, and follow us on Starknet Espresso for more sessions with the minds behind the tech reshaping the internet. I remain your humble host, Uchi. See you next time.